Welcome to another edition of I Am AAPC. Today we have Paul Daddona with us. Paul, who I met at Healthcon in Las Vegas in April of 2024. How are you, Paul?
I'm doing great, Alex. Thanks for joining me today.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here and excited to hear about your story. And your story is unique because you attended HealthCon as someone who has not worked in the field but is certified and looking to build connections. So,
Exactly.
Paul, tell us a little bit about your story about how you found medical coding, AAPC, and how this journey kicked off.
Sure. It's kind of convoluted, so stick with me a little bit. um, I have been looking for a way to get into the medical field for about 10 years. And I looked at OT. My mother was an OT, and I thought, hey, let's keep the family tradition going. And that was a little bit harder to get into school than I thought it might be. So um, then a friend of mine suggested that was a personal trainer suggested that I go into physical therapy assisting. And so I looked into that and started going down the path, and it was all kind of clicking, but it wasn't fully like lighting my fire. And then a friend of mine who has taught for Oasis Answers pulled out her ICD-10 book, and she goes, "Take a look at this." And I looked at that and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I love this." And so she goes, "I think you need to go into medical coding." And I said, "Well, I don't know anything about it, but let's take a look." And during the pandemic, she had turned me on to a place online, and I started trying to follow it online, but I was still new to the Zoom thing, and taking classes online was just something so foreign to me that it wasn't the best way. It wasn't the most conducive way for me to learn about it. And then I started working at Whole Foods, and a friend of mine there said, "Hey, I'm taking this class at Martinez Adult Education, and the teacher's really great, and it's all about medical coding." And we became friends. And then I learned about Lillian's, I met Lillian, and then I signed up and I started taking the class, and I've fallen in love, and I can't get out of love this time.
Well, well, I'm curious. We've spoken about this a little bit, just about your previous career as a marketer, and it seems like a creative. Um, it's rare for a creative type of brain to fall in love with the analytical thinking of medical coding. How has
You
that worked for you, Paul?
would think that. However, I've always loved puzzles. And I think it's a family trait. My grandmother, I remember her doing word search puzzles and everything, and my father voraciously going through crossword puzzles and everything else. And I've always just been addicted to puzzles. And if coding is not the ultimate puzzle, I don't know what is. And so it's kind of interesting to me because not only have I been had my own company as a graphic designer and an artist and everything else, I've also been on the sales side where I've done, had to go in and talk to people and, for lack of a better word or common terminology, sell ice cubes to Eskimos. But all of those things were fine, and it all's just additive into the person that you are. But all through the OT journey and the PTA journey and everything else, the thing that was missing was I wasn't in charge of the puzzle. And this way, in coding, I can look at a picture and say, "Oh, that piece that looks out of place. Let's take it all apart and put it back together again." Or I can look at the blank thing and say, "Oh my goodness, okay, let's build this into a timeline." And so it really is exciting for me.
What were the most exciting components of your studies? What really clicked for you? And then on the other side, what were the most challenging things about studying for the CPC exam?
Okay. Very, very broad questions, and I love it. um, so I'm kind of unique in that I really love ICD-10, and I love looking at, finding the right diagnosis for, and then looking at the procedures and everything else and building the timeline back that way or to that way, whichever way you want to look at it. Um, it's kind of curious. My mother went 30 years ago, and she's 92 now, and she would probably hate me telling this story, but she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer,
Oh,
uterine cancer. And so part of the reason I love ICD-10 is I can go through and it's like, okay, let's really figure out, what my mother's chart says now, and, and things
yeah.
along those lines. So again, it's all part of the puzzle pieces of building a family history, kind of. Um, so that's how I really started getting into the ICD-10 was, okay, let's look at the whole family, let's look at everybody in the family and then like tear apart every diagnostic that they
You're coding your family's medical
exactly
issues.
family history. It's a new way to do a family tree.
There you go. That's right. How about on the challenging side? What was
So
a little more tough for
so the
initially?
tougher thing is, yes, I can figure out all the pieces, but it's doing it in a really timely, quickly manner. That seems to be, the one thing that my teacher has always stressed with me. And even though I'm looking for work right now, one of the things I continually do is timing. And how many diagnostics can I go through? How many made up charts in my head can I go through and get them done quickly and in timely manner so that I'm doing, 6 to 7 an hour or something along those lines. So it's really about the full timing issue. And my advice to people getting into this is really have a very strong base on anatomy and physiology and medical terminology, and that will help you on the exam from the standpoint if you know what body structure you're dealing with. If you're dealing with the lungs and things like that, then you know to go into J for a diagnostic code, for the diagnosis codes. It just helps it easier if you know where you are. You don't have to madly flip through the books of, oh, I remember seeing that on some question long ago, whatever. You don't have to like waste your time. So really with the exam, the best thing to keep in mind is the time. Um, that you have 4 hours to do this and get it all done. Don't leave any answer undone, So really challenge yourself to see how many answers you can do in an hour. And for preparing for the CPC exam, there's an app, and I actually took it off my phone. I don't remember even what it was. But they would allow you to do, like a 10 question every morning. You could do 10 questions, and that were indicative of what might be on the exam. And then you could do timings of your own up to 2 hour timing. So it was a service that I paid for. I think I paid $90 for 3 months, but it was well worth it to me.
Okay.
So I passed my exam on the first time. So I was very happy.
All right. Congratulations on that. That's huge.
It
Uh,
is. It was.
so I love how you talk about timing and how critical that is, and that will be critical in the workplace too, as you code and just
Yes,
knowing,
absolutely.
yeah, just knowing how to find what you're looking for. Did you have a process in the exam of how you would handle each question? Because I hear sometimes from examinees that they start and just go through every easy one, and then they go back and then work on the more difficult questions. Did you have a plan or flow like that?
For the exam, I actually started at question one and went all the way through.
Okay.
I I don't want to waste my time. Again, it goes to timing. I don't want to waste my time looking at, picking out the ones that I know these answers and let's go through that. If you start the exam and you're question one and it's like, okay, I know that one, then the time increases for number two, and I know that one, and you just work your way back that way. It's a very methodical process, but the one that worked for me the best.
Okay. And did you finish right at the end of the allotted time?
5 minutes to spare. 5 minutes.
Nice. Love it. Perfect. You timed it perfectly.
Exactly.
And
But
when did you take the exam, Paul? When did this happen?
I took it in August 19th of 2023.
Okay. And so this is all new. And um, like I mentioned when we kicked this off, we met at Healthcon, and I'm very intrigued about how what led you to want to attend Healthcon?
So actually, that's part of the story. So passed the exam in August, on August 19th, and quickly joined the Martinez chapter. And elections came up in October, and I was nominated and then elected as treasurer for the organization.
So you're
And
wait, hold on. You're in Martinez, California,
uh-huh.
and you've never worked as a coder, but you're certified, you're all in on this.
I'm diving through the deep end at this point in time. So
Yeah. And I love it. You just want to make connections and support your local chapter any way you can. And here
I
you are as
do.
an officer.
And HealthCon, for those people who've never done HealthCon, I really recommend it. There's so much information. And people just starting out that are struggling. One of the things that AAPC offers and that I walked away from HealthCon with is they have a mentor program. So I now have a mentor that's mentoring me, and Jessica is fantastic. I actually attended her session, and she was one of the best presenters that I had that week. And so I just wrote her a quick email asking her to take a look at my resume, see if there was anything. And she wrote back immediately saying she would love to be a mentor to me. And that was such a weight off my shoulder. It's now I'm not doing this by myself, again, going back to the point, this is all brand new to me. It's um, not only the whole coding aspect, but looking for a job in 2024 is totally different than I've ever had to do before. I mean, I'm a very wonderful person and people like to get to talk to me and I can tell great stories and everything like that. But when you're just doing this all online and you're sending resumes out and how frustrating that can get and everything. So again, like I said, everything's additive. So I go back to my telemarketing days. And every time I'm putting out an application or a resume, I'm doing it with a smile on my face because I know that's coming through when I'm writing that cover letter, when I'm making sure this is the right resume that I want to send to this person. In fact, this morning I just applied to a job that's a remote job based in Delaware for Christiana Care. And they're looking for an inpatient coder. And I read the description and everything else, and it spoke to me because they speak of compassion and creativity and ways of taking care of the patient first foremost, and that's something that I really am very connected with in this, and so I'm like, this is like a perfect sign. So I knew I was going to be talking to you, so I was mentally preparing for that and had my smile on my face, and I sent the application up. We'll see how it goes. I don't know.
Has it been intimidating to go into the Martinez chapter as an officer and to be surrounded by these professionals? And here you are. I mean, because I know I'm just speaking for myself and my own insecurities. I'm not speaking for yours, but I'm just speaking how I would feel. What does that feel like to have been nominated and voted in as an officer of your local chapter at this stage of your career?
I actually found it very flattering. Um, with my business, I have a lot of business acumen towards me and again behind me. So as treasurer, it really works for me. And one of the things I love about AAPC and I'm happy to do things like this is because of the fact I know how supportive the community actually is. I belong to 5 or 6 Facebook groups, and there's always new people coming in, and I'm getting ready to take my exam, any hints you may have or anything like that. One person was actually venting that it was taking, I passed my exam 3 months ago, and I'm frustrated and I'm not getting a job, and so I said, hey, success breeds success, so let's walk this together and talk to each other about pointers that we might do. I just find the whole community of AAPC is so very embracing and very acceptable. And like, if you're intimidated about going into sales and you join a professional sales team and you go into that and you've got all these people that are, they're the $1 Million Diamond Club year after year after year. and your expectations are you're going to compare yourself to that, that's really intimidating. And then throw on top of that, oh, and you're going to have to walk into businesses without knowing anything about anybody and talk to them about your product. And how many people look at cold calling as like deer in the headlights, like, oh no, free, no. So I don't find that in this community. I really have found it a very embracing community, and I think it's great. I wish more businesses had like a mentor program and things along those lines.
I would imagine that you had a taste of that unity within the profession at your local chapter, but then it's a whole nother level when you attend our national conference, Healthcon.
Oh, it was amazing. I tried to figure out, numbers of people, but there were just so many. I'm guessing over 1,000 attended this year, but I don't know. And,
2000.
and wow, even
Yeah.
better. Okay. um, and again, with my sales background and everything, I found it very easy for me to go in and just invite myself to a table and ask if I could sit down and start a conversation with people at the table. And as soon as they found out that I was a newbie, they just openly embraced. And it's like, oh, you should look into look at these kind of opportunities and things like that. It was just amazing to me.
So for those watching and considering attending AAPC regional conference or our next HealthCon event,
Orlando
yes,
2025, do it.
yes. Uh,
Absolutely do it.
what was your strategy then? I mean, you talked about just stopping at tables and introducing yourself, but did you have a plan going into HealthCon in Las Vegas of how you'd approach it?
So I actually did have a plan, and um, we were in Vegas. So had I won the slot machine, it would have been I would have walked away from Vegas, and somebody would have said, "I want to hire you right now." That would have been over the top expectations met and everything. Um, my expectations that I went into was I know I'm new to the field, so I wanted to make sure that I quickly got as many of my education credits that I needed. So I fulfilled my year's credit needed, and being the treasurer, I'll continually add more to my thing. Um, but now I don't have to tell the job that, oh, I've got to do these certain functions because I've got to take this class. So now I can focus when I get a job, I can focus surely just on the job.
Yeah.
So that was my first expectation. My second expectation was to get job leads, and again try to figure out how to navigate into this because it is, as we talked about, it is a brand new world for me. Um, and so the open, accepting, and nature of HealthCon, yes, that was above and beyond what I expected there. And then the cherry was finding out about the mentor program. It was something I did not know about before, and talking to Jessica just by email, and she's like, "Oh no, you need to go to this table and sign up, become a mentee." And I quickly did that and proudly wore my little mentee badge. It was great. They, there's so many opportunities that the AAPC like offers that I don't know if people actually fully know the breadth and everything else. So I'm still navigating into that, just as the treasurer. But it was so nice to meet, like Marty and yourself and people that have been in the organization and know some of the pitfalls to look out for and things like that. So to use I don't know why this just popped into my head, but in olden days, when they were riding on the coaches down the city streets and everything else, and a gentleman would get out of his side and he put his coat down so the woman never stepped on puddles. It was kind of along those lines of just such a welcoming gesture of people saying, "Oh no, this is," and you're so excited because they saw my excitement. And if you've been in a field for 10, 20, 30 years, it's always the same thing, but it's kind of like seeing a foreign country for the first time, or for the second time, but you're going with somebody who's never seen it. So you're seeing it all fresh from their perspective again. And so that's why I recommend, yes, go to HealthCon, go to Orlando 2025. I will be there.
All right. All
I'm a
right.
fan of that. So
Well, Paul, we spoke about this in Las Vegas a little bit because I was curious, and I think it would be good for those in your similar situation to hear this. What were the sessions like for you? What would you say? I don't know if there's a percentage or what number of sessions really resonated to you as a newbie versus what was over your head? Would you have selected your sessions differently? What's here? Let's hear
So,
some perspective.
so I selected my sessions. It took me a while to register. So some of the ones that I really wanted had already been filled. And I understand that, certain ones you can only have so many people in, and you know, good on you. Let's get people registered early so that you don't run into that problem. But I found that even though a lot of them were for more experienced people, I found a lot of the sessions I could still get I still got information out of them. Um, the ones that I knew would be like way over my head, like professionals asking the coding professional, asking advices to denials and things like that. If I haven't experienced denials, I knew that I was not going to get anything from that. So I really looked at what was being offered, and tried to fill up my day with things that I knew that I would actually take use of. So
Okay, all right. And I remember you saying you had pages of notes,
I
and
do. I
not
took
all
a
of it is clicked yet, but it will.
you still have to process. I got a couple more months before my August deadline. So, by then I'll be a professional magician.
There you go. There you go. Well, Paul, what a great story, and I would love to follow up with you again as your career unfolds. It's still just
Absolutely.
going. A lot's happening for you right now.
And a lot is overwhelming sometimes. But again, this goes back to I try to find something new every day. I try to learn something new every day. I try to view something in a different way every day. So I told you in Vegas, not only am I learning this world, but I'm also learning German. I don't know why. I just felt like German seemed like an interestingly fun language. So I'm a year plus in duo on German, and as you know, I still have my creative outlets, so I paint. And things like that. So if I'm having a down day, if I'm putting out resume after resume after resume, and then also having to go to my job that now I've got short term or complex with, because I know I want this job over here, but I have to have this job to pay my bills, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
um, but what do you do to break yourself out of that? So I always, I'll go into my garage, I'll pull out a canvas and I'll sketch something out. I'll start painting, or as you know, I'm very intrigued by new media. So let's get my hands dirty. Let's see what I can do. I don't know. Um,
yes,
so it's always, if you're feeling overwhelmed, and even if you're feeling overwhelmed in a work process or something along those lines, just take a step back, put yourself in a place that makes you happy, and remember that best feeling that you have, and carry yourself with a smile on your face, because you never know who you're going to meet tomorrow. You never know what's coming down the pike. So if I try to keep a smile on my face, it's kind of like I say to everybody when I say, hey, how's your day going? And they say, oh, same old, same old. And it's like, well, you've just condemned your day to be the same thing that it was yesterday and the day before. I start every day that every day's great. And then if I have some pitfalls and everything, it may come out to be, hey, I had an okay day, but that's okay is better than same old, same old. So
yes, yes. Attitude is everything.
exactly, it really is. And that's in life, in job search, and anything. So little words of wisdom from a newbie in coding, I
There you
guess.
go. Being at this point right now, you're an inspiration, and we'll call this part one of the Paul Daddona coding story, and we'll follow up with you again in the future.
Perfect. Sounds great, Alex. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
You're welcome, Paul.